uh, what's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and tonight on Let's Talk, we are talking about whether or not Jesus existed. And I think that there's a lot of different avenues that we could go down tonight if you wanted to call in to Let's Talk. There's the wrong reference class that is generally applied to Jesus. There's no direct eyewitness accounts. All the documents are based on hallucinations, and the earliest Christians valued those hallucinations more than historically grounded sources. So if you want to discuss this topic, please do call into the show because it's starting right now.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.
What's up, everybody? What's up there, Chad? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm hydrating, as you can see. Like, as soon as we can, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm back. Good. Now, I'm doing just fine. I have been on the road over the holidays. Just got back from Portland, Oregon, which is a lot colder and rainier than it is here in Alabama, where I currently am. But you know what? It was very Christmassy, so I can't complain. How have you been, John?
I've been doing all right. Just, trying to get all of my clips and everything ready for the main channel. I still have to get a video ready for tomorrow on my channel. But other than that, it's been fabulous. It's been pretty fun here. Cold. At least for me, I know it's colder up in Oregon or whatnot, but it's still cold as shit here for me. That's why I'm wearing like my jacket and everything. I have to be, a balmy like 80 degrees all the time, because that's just what Alabama is. But
well, meanwhile, I'm exercising the right to bear arms, so For those of you who were just listening to the stream, I am wearing short sleeves.
I'm wearing short sleeves underneath my jacket, but everybody that's watching, if you are a theist or even if you just believe in a historical Jesus, you should definitely consider calling in. There's a web link that you can call in from, but there's also a number 984-400-5656. You can call in and you can challenge us on anything about the Bible, anything about Jesus existing in history and all that kind of stuff. And Chad here is a former IBLP kid, and so he's went through some shit, and you could ask him about his experiences or anything like that, or maybe why he doesn't believe in God, that kind of thing, like what transpired to make that happen. In case you haven't seen Shiny Happy People season 1, that's the interesting one about what's his face, the Duggars. The Duggars is kind of the main sort of selling factor, I guess, for season 1, but it's really just like an anti IBLP sort of season, which is interesting. Chad, do you want to tell everybody kind of, who you are? I've kind of alluded to it a little bit, but do you want to expound on that?
Sure thing. Yes, thank you. I, as John said, I was in Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets, which was the first season of the Trauma Museum, I guess now you can call the Shiny Happy People series. It covers the IBLP, which was the Institute in Basic Life Principles, which was a huge parachurch religious organization that was popular from like the 70s through probably about the mid-2000s. It still exists, although not nearly as popular as it was. And its main focus when I was in it was on homeschooling and really pushing forward the homeschool movement, and eventually trying to get all these little homeschool brains full of mush into government positions, which I personally believe is a lot or has a lot to do with what we're seeing now. The Christian nationalist movement had used organizations like IBLP and very similar related organizations to try to gain power over the last 30 years or so. So my goal in talking about IBLP and my experience in the cult is to try to show how this has been planned for some time. Everything that we're seeing in regards to the promotion of Christian nationalism, the consolidation of power in the executive and stuff like that. All this has been part of the playbook for years. And I feel like if we look at where it came from, we can better learn how to fight it and how to keep it from getting any more power. So that's been my passion. And also, I am an atheist and a skeptic, and I do share my experiences on that as well, because that was a long time coming. I'm very stubborn. And even after I left IBLP, it took a while to even get to that point. And hey, I'm still learning. So I like to sharing that journey with everyone. And I love to meet amazing people like John here, who at this point I consider a personal friend. He is an awesome person, and I could not be happier to do a stream with him tonight. So go for it.
Yeah, no, I consider you a personal friend too. I mean, you know, you've kind of slept at my house before, so
That's true.
I would hope so. But
you found out about that? Damn it.
Yes, we checked the attic area, and we could see the remnants. So, you know.
Turn around, I'm behind you right now. I'm kidding.
Yeah. But as for tonight, we're talking about, like, I guess the historicity of maybe Christianity, historicity of Jesus, and all that other kind of stuff. I'm wondering, like, in your experience, you know, what has that been taught? Like, what has that been like for you growing up, as far as like the history, like did historicity of the gospel narratives, or of Christianity in general, did that play a big part, or was there a focus somewhere else about that?
It was always just assumed, like everything in the Gospels is accurate. How dare you ask any questions about it, or even propose that anything could be off about it? In addition to the IBLP, I was also part of the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church, which was the denomination that my dad was a pastor of, and he believed that we had the one true tradition that got passed down from the disciples of Jesus to the modern day, which it never really occurred to me till later that it seemed a little odd that the disciples should wear three-piece suits and sing Southern gospel music, but okay. But he claimed that there was actually a sermon called "The Scarlet Thread Through the Bible" that that some IFB preacher taught, that tried to make a case that actually the Independent Fundamental Baptists were never even a Protestant thing. They didn't even have any connections to the Catholic or Protestant churches, and therefore they have to be the true church. And yeah, so basically it was always assumed that everything in the Gospels happened as it was written, and then we were the one true guardians of it. So it was silly.
Wow. I mean, so what kind of I guess trying to think of the correct word here. How did they mesh some of these accounts? Because, like, with the gospels, like, several different things happened, and they're told in different ways, and in drastically different ways. So I'm kind of curious how they managed to merge. It's the word I was looking for, merge. How did they manage to merge those accounts?
So funny enough, I actually noticed that as a kid. Like, I would go through and I would read all the different accounts of, say, just just like the passion, I guess you would call it, or, you know, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. I noticed that there were just some things that happened in each account that just either flat out did not make sense to the other accounts, or were flat out contradictions. And I asked Dad about it. I said, okay, so some of these accounts say this thing and some of them say that thing. And his justification was, well, John was the only one who got it 100% right, because he was closest to Jesus in all of that. Like, he was laying on Jesus's chest, giggity. But he said, even though the other disciples didn't quite hear everything correctly, they also heard other things that are okay. And what you're really reading is just like different perspectives of all the stuff that happened. So it all happened, but different people saw different portions of the same thing, which as a kid, I accepted, because A, your parents told you that, and B, in the cult I was in, if you push back against it any further, you were in danger of being physically abused. So long story short, it was just, it was all just different perspectives of the same thing. Some people had more detail than others. Short story long, anything by Charles Dickens.
Okay. That's crazy interesting. how, because it's always interesting to me how they tend to merge things, because like, just coming off of Christmas and everything, it amazes me. Like, I never knew as a Christian that we were like merging two separate accounts that occur like 10 years apart, whenever the manger scenes were like constructed and everything like that. What was like I don't know if you can remember, after you deconstructed, like what was your feeling around like the holiday season right around that time? Like, did it feel different, or like was it pretty much the same thing for you?
I mean, when I first left fundamentalism, I tried to approach Christianity on my own terms. And, I mean, I guess in kind of a Tim Minchin way, I've always really liked Christmas. So it's, just the whole aesthetic and all that. I was still very much for it. I attended more mainstream churches that would do, the whole Christmas story, and they would present it in a way that, seemed nice and seemed to be a little less dogmatic than what I was raised with. But even at that, like, the more I learned about, the Christmas narrative as it was presented to me, I was just like, you know what? Like, I just kind of lost interest entirely in the Jesus story, even from the very beginning. And so, to me, the holidays just kind of took on a different meaning of, hey, you know what? This is a time where we can, like, maybe slow the hell down at the end of the year, and kind of, because human beings, we like to look back. We like to see the patterns that happened in our lives over the past year, and we like to plan out. I mean, what a year is pretty arbitrary, right? Like, the times and the seasons are just, what we call them. And so, I'm all for a time where you can, like, get together, hang out with some friends, maybe put work aside for a second because it's too damn cold, and just say, hey, you know what? How'd you like this year? It's great. Let's hang out. Let's recap, and let's move forward into some more cold ass months where we're going to be cold and miserable. But in this brief amount of time, let's talk about, how much we love each other, and, how much we like to, take part in reviewing the year. So to me, it became less about, the reason behind the Christmas story, and more about just, hey, let's just make it about the people in our lives that we love.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of where I was at for a long time. Like, I stopped associating the holiday season with Jesus, like, even when I was a kid. Like, of course, I'd think about it whenever I saw like a nativity scene or something like that. But for the most part, like Christmas morning or any of the stuff leading up to Christmas, I really didn't think about like Jesus all that much. Now, as a fundamentalist Christian, did you believe like in the whole December 25th date and everything like that? Like, he was literally born on December 25th, and that's why we celebrated, or what was that like for you growing up?
We actually did teach that December 25th was not when Jesus was born, because everything indicated that it was springtime because there were shepherds out in the fields and stuff. So at least they had that much to it. But they were also like, but also, we just traditionally chose, this part of the year because, and they didn't get into like the pagan stuff or any of the, solstice type things. They're just like, it's just a nice time of year to do it. And, why not? Let's just celebrate Jesus's birth. Now, I did have some friends who were so fundamentalist that they refused to do even that. Like, I had one family that believed that Christmas was a Hindu tradition. I didn't dare ask any more questions than that because I knew it was going to go somewhere weird. But they refused to celebrate Christmas because they're like, oh, all the heathens do that, and it actually has deep, Hindu origins if you look into it. And I was like, yeah, okay, just y'all do your thing. They still did birthdays weirdly, which who knows. But yeah, but it was it was less of like, this is exactly when it happened, and this particular time of year, and more like, yeah, let's just do it here because this is as good a time as any. Now, Easter, they were very adamant about. They were like, it happened right at this time. So,
Yeah, and we did have a comment in the stream, which I would really like it if J.K. Brown would request, not request up. Sorry, that's TikTok language. Would call in, just so that you're aware there, J.K. The phone number is 984-400-5656, or you can hit up the web caller. But J.K. Brown says, does Jesus exist? I don't think any secular historian would debate Jesus existed, let alone Christian ones. And he literally can't think of a single secular historian who debates it. And that's the problem. I feel like that's the problem with New Testament studies. And I've been hearing at a more increasing rate of, more secular and critical scholars in the area being very fed up with New Testament scholarship, especially in the realm of the history or the historical origins of Christianity, how Christianity developed. But just because you can't think of any historians that are new, that's one thing that we have to really kind of discuss first, is that it's not just secular historians, right? It's New Testament scholars that are the pertinent, experts in this field, that nobody's going to debate like that, because that's the party line for New Testament studies, is that Jesus existed as a historical figure. He keeps saying, name one. Oh, okay. Name a scholar. Well, of course, there's, let's see. Of course, Richard Carrier, you're probably not going to like that person that I mentioned. Raphael Lataster, he's another secular historian in that area. Name one of the Christian ones. Oh, Thomas L. Thompson. He's a Christian historian. He's dead now, but he was a mythicist and a Christian at the same time. There's actually about what is it? I think the count's like about 40 now that are sympathetic to the mythicist position, and even more than that, that think that the topic needs active discussion on it. So I mean, yeah, there's plenty of people. So J.K. Brown, if you want to call in and challenge me on this, this is one of my hyperfixations, so I could talk your ear off all night about that. So if you really want to, yes, David Fitzgerald is also a good one to read on this. I actually did the cover, the book art for his Jesus Mything in Action books. But yeah, so
Electronic Boy Scout mentions John Gleason. I've heard of that guy. I think he's pretty cool.
What? Who's that fuck?
Hey, be nice to him. He's a friend.
But yeah, so JK, please request up. I'm trying to look. I've got this nice graphic of mine, and I can't remember what I titled it. Nope, that's not it. But in any case, yeah, so we've got like a lot of New Testament scholars that are coming around to either being open to debating it, or they are mythicists themselves. So yeah, please, I would love to talk to you about it. Which I don't think JK is actually secure enough in his position to actually call in. That's really weird.
Well, it's interesting to me too. Yeah, it's interesting to me too that J.K. mentioned earlier, name a single secular scholar, and has now moved on to, do you agree most secular historians do believe in the existence of Jesus? I don't know, something about goalposts and kind of in motion, it just brings up a little bit of an image of that for me. I can't imagine why.
Yeah, I totally agree. The goalpost shifting is always moving for a lot of historicists in there. Dan McLeod is laughing at both of you, calling him. Be right back. Okay.
Sure. Hey, and when you do, ask him if we could, continue on with the one shot I ran for him earlier, Dragon Con. So there's that. Just because people don't agree on, particular things doesn't mean that they're going to laugh at each other about it. That's not how human beings do things.
Yeah, well, I also like how it's apparently it's like, I'm going to go and call Dan so that we can laugh about this. If I were Dan, I would be like, why the fuck are you calling me? Like, it seems so childish to act like that. So yeah, feel free, go ahead, call Dan. I've actually had a discussion with Dan, and over, what was it? I think it was over what it means in Romans 1:3 to be born of a woman, kind of thing. And interestingly enough, he couldn't actually explain to me why the Greek interpretation of a normal birth is preferred over manufacture, which is how Paul actually, describes Jesus's body. He just says, oh, it's always been taken that way. So I'm not exactly. I mean, I feel like Dan has the general consensus sort of argumentation for it, and that's pretty much what he leaves it up to. But I guess J.K. Brown feels that we're a waste of time, so he left because he's too scared to get up here and actually challenge us.
Yeah, it's weird how like as soon as you're just like, okay, sure, I mean, come on up, folks just tend to scatter. And by the way, at no point have I even expressed my opinion on mythicism, so like I don't even know why the hell he's just assuming that both of us are a waste of time. Hell, for all you know, I might agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a good question. Where do you stand on mythicism? Which I just want to say, I'm perfectly fine with you, not being a mythicist. I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my whole thing on it is I am very comfortable in saying that Jesus, as he is presented in the Gospels, it did not exist. Like, all of that is very clearly legend. All of that is very clearly a whole bunch of stories that started out in one place and ended up like through a game of telephone getting exaggerated and exaggerated. If you just look, as we talked about earlier, the contradictions in the gospel to me clearly point out a whole like, well, actually, this, and then this happened. And, oh, he was in Nazareth, but he was supposed to be in Bethlehem for my narrative. Oh, let's just make up a Bethlehem thing. Like, clearly all that happens. Clearly people don't rise from the dead. People clearly people don't just like spit in people's eyes and they can see again. That's not how any of this works. So the Jesus in the Gospels is a fiction, much like Paul Bunyan. Now, the only thing where I don't consider myself a full mythicist is I am going to go ahead and hedge my bets and say, even though there was no Paul Bunyan in the same way that there was no Jesus, there may have been a man named Paul Bunyan somewhere who chopped down a tree one time. And I'm not going to say that there was never a person named Jesus who didn't make some apocalyptic predictions at some point, because as soon as I do, with my luck, some dude's going to like uncover some scroll somewhere saying, hey, a dude named Jesus existed one time, therefore Noah's Ark is true. And I'm like, I don't even want to give him that much, so I'm just like, sure, maybe some dude popped off at some point and maybe some people were like, hey, remember that weird guy? Let's make up stories about him. Fine. But I don't have any good reason to believe that he did exist, and frankly, it doesn't matter to me. I just know the one in the Gospels doesn't.
Okay. No, I'm perfectly fine with that. And we do have a guest. Alfred has requested up from Texas. What's up there, Alfred? How you doing?
Hello,
Alfred.
how are you guys?
Hey, Alfred. How you doing?
Good.
Okay, good. So now, it says here that you think that Jesus was a historical person. So maybe we could start out with this. Maybe you can give me your best evidence that you have for believing that Jesus was a historical person.
Well, for me, it's a cumulative argument. There's not one strand, but some arguments are better. For me, I'm not very confident in my own reasoning abilities. I really am not, but I'm not an atheist, but I know a lot about them. I kind of feel in a little, and like Friedrich Nietzsche, Sam Harris, those kind of types. Like, yeah, there was a guy. They're perfectly fine with that, and of course they have their own reasons.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry there, Alfred. What I asked for was, what is your best piece of evidence? I get that it's a cumulative case. I'm wanting to go step by step through your cumulative case. So let's just start with the one at the very top.
Well, no, I'm just saying that like people who I trust and respect, it's not an issue for them.
Alfred, I'm just going to be totally blunt with you right now. I don't care. I don't care if people that you trust believe the same thing that you do on this particular topic. I'm wanting to know what is the thing. If you're just telling me that an appeal to consensus here or an appeal to authority is the only reason why you believe Jesus is a historical figure, then I have a bridge to sell you, and a lot of people agree that you should buy it.
Okay, well, I'll get to it then. So one argument is, and I'm sure you know that there were some Jews awaiting a Messiah, not all of them. But the popular understanding of a Messiah, and I know you've heard this line of argument, is that he would renew Israel triumphantly. There's no Jewish expectation of a Messiah who would be crucified, killed, or even suffer. So
no, that's not right.
Probable,
That's not right.
Oh.
There were Jews in the 1st century BCE who actually invented a narrative for King Onias III when he died, and they developed this suffering and resurrecting Messiah sort of concept. So he suffered and died, and he was considered the Messiah that was going to be resurrecting to provide them salvation. So I mean, that's not even accurate. And that's just basic Jewish history. Go ahead.
And can I ask a clarifying question too? Like, I thought that this was about, the historical Jesus and not necessarily the idea of a Messiah. Those are two different things.
Good point.
Well, just it's unlikely that they would have invented this figure, is my argument, which suggests that he's historical. Like, what probably happened was Jesus was part of a messianic movement, and it was really unexpected that he went out like that. And so the New Testament is basically a rationalization, like how that guy was the Christ. Like, that he was crucified like that was proof to most Jews of the time that he was.
I'm sorry, Alfred. I'm trying to like get a word in here edgewise, but none of that is actually accurate. There were plenty of Jews that were expecting a suffering and dying Messiah. There are scholars, Talmudic scholars. Boyarin is the one that's coming to mind right now, that identify that the suffering and dying and then eventually resurrecting Messiah was something that was very much part of Judaism and the Jewish expectation of the Messiah since King Onias III. So no, I mean that's just not even accurate the way that you're characterizing it.
May I ask, what do you make of the names in the Gospels?
The names in the Gospels.
Which names? Like typically I know some Christian scholar did a study of the name distribution in Israel around the time of Jesus, and then she counted up all the names like James, John, and it roughly matched that. And sometimes what you'll find in the Gospels, you have like Simon of Cyrene, Simon of this, Simon of that, and it's like qualifiers that are put in there to differentiate people. And common names. You know how we have common names today? Well, back then they had common names and they were even more common. So in the narrative, you'll see these qualifiers that are put in there, and it seems like to differentiate, like for the reader, okay, this is who this is who this is. But like, of course, if you're writing fiction, you've got all these available names. You don't have to do that. You just give them a different name. But
no. I mean, no. As far as writing fiction goes, if you just give like generic names, and even if you provide qualifiers for differentiating your different generically named characters, I mean, I feel like the generic names allow your fiction to masquerade as potential history, right? Like there's no way to fact check it. It makes it unfalsifiable, right?
Richie of Derry, Maine.
What?
It's a good, the dairy thing is a very apt comparison there. So you asked me what I make of the names. I think that the names in the Gospels and just the general stories of the Bible, I think that just is a product of myth making. I mean, unless you're going to tell me that generically named fictional people that we know about could not be fictional like, in the past. Like there are obviously fictional. We can agree that there are fictional accounts that include generically named characters, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know one of the signs of like a fiction or whatnot are conveniently named characters? Do you agree about that?
Please do not say Judas.
Well, I mean that's one. I wasn't gonna go to Judas first, but Judas, him representing like Jews and everything like that, and betraying Jesus. Like, I mean, that's conveniently named for the betrayer.
Well, if you want to go down that route, it is interesting how they have the Romans crucify Jesus in their fiction, and it seems like damage control to a lot of scholars. It's like, yes, Pilate did it. He got it done. But the Jews, they were the ones pressuring him into it. And it's the way that the Gospels describe the event.
I really don't care about the Gospels. The Gospels are fictional. Like that's one place where both Chad and I will agree on. The Gospels are fictional accounts. So like those were created post hoc. What?
I don't see it as black and white. I mean, there is historical material in there.
Okay,
sure.
can you describe the methodology for discerning between historical and non-historical parts of the Gospels?
Well, it'll vary from scholar to scholar. There's no one way to do history.
Is that so? Can you say that of science? Like, if we were to talk about, radiometrically dating rocks, or are you going to sit there and be like, well, the method really depends on who you talk to. It's like which scientist uses which radiometric, method and all this other stuff to date this one particular thing. It really depends.
Well, no, history is different fundamentally from science because you can't run an experiment to determine, Caesar existed. We see that in the lab.
Well, no. We're not talking about the differences between hard and soft sciences. We're talking about the differences in applying methodology. If you have a methodology that changes depending on which scholar you talk to, I don't really think that you have like a methodology there. What you have are just personal like whims that people judge evidence on, and that doesn't seem to be like a very accurate way of viewing evidence, right?
Sure. Well, I'll say every scholar has different methods, but they get a lot of the big things they'll agree on. So like multiple attestation, is your source early?
It's multiple. Hold on, I got to correct you there. I'm sorry. You keep saying things that are wrong, like in quick succession. So I got to interrupt real quick. So it's multiple independent attestation. You missed a key word. There's independent. See, like we've got to establish independence. Do you think that the four gospels are independent of one another?
Definitely the synoptics. There's a literary relation. John is disputed.
Nope.
We don't have to get into Q.
Nope, there's no Q, and none of the synoptics are independent, and John is also not independent. The only one that's slightly independent is Mark, but Mark still depends on Paul's work, so that kind of only makes him pseudo-independent.
How do you know Mark used Paul, and can you demonstrate that there was no Q? Because you just made an assertion there.
Yeah, I'll just have to direct you to Mark Goodacre. Yeah, Mark Goodacre. He's got a really good book. He's also got a really nice website, Disputing Q. So that's where you're going to find the fuller refutation of Q. But essentially, the Q document doesn't exist. You've got recreations of it that are scholars that put what they want to in Q so that it makes sense for them to understand the Gospels as being seeded off of Q. But I think that if you get rid of Q, then you just have Mark, and then Mark is the seed for the other gospels, and that plenty explains it. Now, how we know that Mark used some of Paul's epistles is that there are some topics that occur in Mark where Paul is very explicitly talking about how it's his personal opinion and not a command from the Lord, and then Mark takes that personal opinion from Paul and puts it into Jesus's mouth. Now, it's either Mark knows better than Paul, even though Mark was writing 20 years maybe after Paul was writing, either Mark knows better than Paul 20 years later, nearly a whole lifetime later, or Paul knew what he was talking about because he received revelation from Jesus and all this other stuff. And so he would know if Jesus told him these things and it wasn't his personal opinion. So it makes more sense that Mark would have read Paul's epistles and then reified the statements into Jesus's own mouth, as opposed to just saying that these are personal whims of other people. Mark was obviously wanting to make that like some kind of canon thing.
Yeah, well, I'm not convinced. And the thing with Goodacre, well, I can cite Kloppenborg, who is, I wouldn't say convinced there was a Q, but he definitely takes Goodacre to task. So, I mean, you can't just say, well, Goodacre says this. Like, you still haven't demonstrated there was no Q. But we don't have to.
Mark Goodacre has actually pretty well established an alternative, more simple explanation. So, do you know what Occam's razor is?
Yes.
Okay. Can you try to explain it to me? How you understand it?
Sure. It's do not the formulation that Goodacre likes to use is do not multiply entities. Do not multiply entities more than is necessary. Something like that.
Yeah, so it has more to do with ad hoc assertions. And so the among competing hypotheses, the one with the least ad hoc assertions attached onto it, or unsupported assertions, is going to be more likely to be true. So in this case, the Goodacre Q hypothesis has far less ad hoc assertions in it, because the Q hypothesis just fabricates this whole document Q and then makes everything work considering that. So it's almost like a begging the question kind of position that you have there, because you have to first assume Q exists and then interpret the Gospels in light of Q existing, instead of coming at it from an agnostic point of view, saying, oh, did Q exist? Can we explain how these Gospels could have been written without some kind of amorphous document that we can't know what was in it? And that's not even getting to the source criticism part of the problem. And that's that you can't actually establish that Q was independent of any kind of Christian thought, before or after Paul. So like, because we can't actually analyze Q, we can't determine where the information comes from or anything like that. The Q hypothesis is just a bad hypothesis, when, especially when we already have the Gospel of Mark and then its relationship to all the other Gospels. So, given that, I do want to give Chad a chance here. I don't want to like bogart the time too much and everything. I know I've been talking a lot. This is a hyperfixation for me. But anyways, Chad, what do you think so far?
I mean, yeah, I feel like, speaking of the Q hypothesis, I feel like we've already had enough issues with people claiming that documents that don't exist related to somebody named Q. I think that all that kind of stuff has already gotten us in way more trouble in modern times. So I'm not even going to begin to talk about that with biblical stuff, because good Lord, I mean, just what we have is enough. But I do have a question about the whole thing with the name distribution, though, because that kind of that was interesting to me. Yes, there are people whose names may fit well with a particular time and place in a distribution, and they may be like differentiated by this person of this place. But I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Peter Parkers in New York. And just because someone was named Peter Parker from Queens, who is also known as Spider-Man, in New York, which Queens and New York are very real places, just because they are named, that doesn't necessarily mean they aren't a complete fabrication as they are presented. So, I mean, there may have been, like I said, there may have been a guy named Jesus, but it doesn't mean that it was that particular teacher,
Well, no, I'm talking about like ancillary characters. So a better analogy would be, you've got Spider-Man, and like you have Anne of this, Anne of, the daughter of whoever. And it's like, well, why don't, sir, you've got all these other available names for characters. Why don't you use those? You don't have to use all these awkward qualifiers if you're writing fiction, right? You just change a name. That
I mean,
Okay,
pretty much all of Spider-Man's villains were from different parts of New York, and they were identified as such. So I've seen it in
oh,
lots of fictions, not necessarily historical or modern. So if you make up a story, yeah, I mean, you can pretty much just call a person a name and say they're from this place. It doesn't. I don't really see how that is like a revolutionary thing. People have been doing
no,
that for years.
I don't
I,
think you're understanding. Like if it was Otto Octavius and then it was Otto of Gotham, that would be more
No, that's
analogous.
DC. Oh no, that would
yeah,
just be a multiverse incursion, and we
you,
cannot have
yeah,
that. Not in the
no,
comics.
yeah. You just blaspheme nerds everywhere. I'm just telling you right now. Okay, man.
I just whatever town came to mind. I know.
Oh, here's a good one. Since you're mentioning towns, do you think that Arimathea existed?
I think it probably did. I know there's no record of it. It was
Yeah, that's
probably
kind of weird, right? Like if I made up Shittsville, that is about 50 miles away from me. There's no record of it anywhere, but yet I know Jim Bob from Shittsville. Does that make Shittsville a real place?
Well, I think you know what my answer would be to that. I mean, there was a time when people disputed the existence of Nazareth, and like
They
Josephus
still
doesn't
do.
mention it. Bicephorus, right? And I mean that we don't have it, or like back to Q, just because we don't have the document, it is an argument against its existence, true, but I mean, when you're dealing with ancient history, we've got a fragmented record. There's tons of stuff that we just don't have, unfortunately. And like,
How
I wouldn't.
What about the fact that it seems to be a convenient name for the unsuspecting apostle of Jesus that buried him, Joseph of Arimathea, which if you break down Arimathea into its syllable, parts, syllabic parts, it actually means Joseph from best disciple town or something like that. So it's kind of weird how like the supposed best disciple of Jesus, this Joseph that decided to bury him in his own tomb, ended up burying him in his own in the tomb, like giving his tomb up. It's kind of convenient, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's also convenient is the name Yeshua itself.
See, now there I disagree with you. That was a very common name.
It was a
That's
common name, but it's a convenient name for the Messiah, which is why it was a common name.
Emmanuel would have been better.
Huh?
Emmanuel of Bethlehem.
Oh, that
I
was
think
also his
Emmanuel would have
name.
been better.
Right, that was also his name. He was also called Emmanuel as they interpreted from the Old Testament, but Yeshua is definitely a name that's connected with Yahweh. Do you see the connection there? Yeshua, Yahweh, like it's a divine
Aware of
name
the
itself.
etymology, yeah. I
Right.
mean,
No, that's my point, is that the Savior being named Yeshua, a very divinely connected name and everything like that. You don't think that that's just a little bit convenient?
no, not at all. I mean,
No, of course. The divine name that's directly connected to Yahweh, and then the guy who's supposedly the direct son of this Yahweh is called Yeshua. There's no convenience there. No connection whatsoever. It would be a lot like if I named my son John Gleason Jr. Just no connection whatsoever to like me being John Gleason too.
okay. Well, I mean, for me, a lot of it is just reading the Gospels, and you start very carefully, and you start to pick up on things that are like, wait, and it just makes sense out of, no, they're talking about a real guy. They didn't get everything right,
Okay,
but
so
like,
first of all, you haven't actually established what methodology you're using to discern the historical parts of the Gospels from the non-historical parts of the Gospels. So I would like to know what criteria you use for that, because it's obviously not basic historical methodology, right? You're not using the historical method. You're using special methodology.
there's no one historical method, the
Yes, there
historical
is.
method. I mean, or would
If
oh,
you
I
look up the historical method, you will find entries on the historical method. There is a historical method like out there. that
I'd like to hear
others
it.
use.
No one way to do history. I mean, history is like thoughts about the past.
Right. There are best practices that give you the best results. And actually, history went through sort of like a restructuring right around the 1950s or so. So like if you start referencing things prior to the 1950s, you're going to find that they're very problematic, because the actual criteria that is part of the historical method, like the historical method that's used across the history disciplines, you'll see that it gets refactored around the 1950s. And so like we value things like independent sources, and we value things like firsthand accounts. There's strict criteria on how to handle secondary accounts or tertiary accounts. Like there's different criteria for different types of evidence, but typically what we're looking for are firsthand eyewitness accounts. And if we don't have those, secondary accounts or tertiary accounts can be used, but we would need some kind of appeal to a firsthand source, or appeal to previous sources, not just some recollection of what people are saying about it, right? And then there's the independence thing that I talked about. Independent sources are valued over other sources. So like if you have two sources, right, but one source references the previous source, then you only have one source. So all of this is what I'm leading up to, is asking you, what are the sources to the Gospels?
I would say a cloud of oral tradition. Q. Mark is the source of Matthew and Luke. I do not think Paul is a source for any of the Gospels. Those were like not private correspondence, but I mean, you got to make the argument to me, convince me that they are dependent on him, because I mean, that is controversial.
Alfred, I feel like you're disingenuous here, because I could find it right now. Like I could look at my notes and I could give you several examples where Mark reifies the personal opinions of Paul into Jesus's mouth. That's not going to convince you, though, right? You're going to come up with different reasons to reject my argument, and you're going to say that it doesn't prove anything, and so you're going to stick to your guns. So is it really fruitful for me to like provide any of that information, which I can provide, by the way? I can give it to you. It's just, like I said, I just don't think that it's really going to matter to you.
No, I mean, you got to make the argument. I mean, I can be convinced. I think it would be really cool if the three synoptic gospels were independent, and it's just there's too much verbatim agreement. Obviously Matthew and Luke are editing Mark. Like I can be convinced. It's just you got to give me more than probably what you've got. No offense. I mean, there's a reason that this is contentious.
See, you've already predetermined what I've got. You've already predetermined it. So, like I said, does it really matter what evidence I give you?
Well, if the evidence is quality evidence, sure, I'd like to hear it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You also think Luke knew of Josephus, and that's another contentious claim. I mean,
it's only contentious to dogmatic New Testament scholars. Like critical scholarship is on board with that, and it's due to the things that Luke gets wrong in his narrative, and then also Luke, I believe in Acts, actually mentions other messiahs, and those messiahs are mentioned in the exact same order that Josephus mentions them. So I mean, there's just plenty of information to establish that Luke used Josephus in some kind of way, which fixes Luke near the end of the first century, or more than likely into the second century.
Yes. I mean, if you think he used Josephus's work, Scott Bignell, I don't know if you know of him. He's compiled a list of scholars. Bart Ehrman is not on there. He's not convinced. Is he dogmatic?
Okay. Yes, Bart Ehrman's definitely dogmatic. He adheres to the dogmatic Christian line, and in the past that's been because his job depends on it, but he's retiring this year. But he's already established in the field, so there's no point in him actually updating his information on that.
He's an atheist. He's dogmatic.
Yes, you could be a dogmatic atheist in this particular realm, especially if your job depends on it.
you think he was in risk of being fired if he came out and said, no, Luke used Josephus?
Yeah, you know what happened to Mike Licona when Mike just simply said that the resurrection of many people, like the zombie walk that was done after Jesus died on the cross, he said that was just apocalyptic imagery and not something that really happened. He got fired from his job. He got blacklisted from talking events, and he barely recovered from it. But I mean, still the repercussions are there. Like that those things do happen. And that was just saying, hey, zombies didn't walk around. That was just apocalyptic imagery. Like that was colorful language.
Okay, I'm still not convinced that like Bart secretly thinks, you didn't say that, but that he's not coming out as knowing that Luke used Josephus, because that might get him fired. Like, come on.
No, I didn't say that. But what I did say was that Bart is a dogmatically holding Christian. I'm sorry, I'm bogarting the conversation again there, Chad. What do you think so far?
I heard something really interesting there a second ago. So, Alfred, if I'm understanding correctly, you do believe that there is a source called Q that hasn't been proven to exist, and, the Gospels somehow take from that. But it's too much of a stretch to think that Mark took things from the Pauline writings, because at least we know the Pauline writings exist.
Well, see, the thing is, you don't start out by assuming there was a Q, as I could be getting that wrong, as Mr. Engineer said. What you do is you take Mark, and Matthew and Luke are using him as a source. And it's a strained argument to say that Luke used Matthew or Matthew used Luke. They look independent of each other, which is interesting because there's this double tradition material. They're getting it from somewhere, someone, and it can't be oral tradition because it's just too high of verbatim agreement, and it's ordered pretty much.
Or maybe the authors just made shit up.
Yeah.
Well, that is also on the table.
Yes, but you have to explain where that material came from. It can't be from
the vivid imaginations of the authors. I'm not assuming that the Gospels are historical in any sense. Like, the very story of Jesus's birth begins with something that we have absolutely no evidence for, and frankly is absurd. The whole, survey thing and the whole, taking the census is not only something we don't have evidence for, but it's also something that is just practically impossible and, inefficient. So I can't see where anything in the Gospels, other than that they reference, names and towns and possibly some historical figures that were, of the time, I don't see how I can trust them as historical documents at all. They're clearly written with an agenda. They're clearly written to establish this one person as some kind of supernatural being. And I just don't know how much I can trust them. Therefore, I'm just like, cute story, bro, but I don't have evidence for it.
Well, you can often tell what happened based on what a person is arguing against. And like you brought up the infancy narratives, that's actually an argument for the existence of Jesus as a historical figure. Hitchens made this argument.
Those are written later. Right? Those are written much later. Those are not reflective.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and if it was fiction through and through, can I make this argument? It'll take about 30 seconds or.
Okay.
Okay. No, it's just, you might not. Okay. So what you have is in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus is Jesus of Nazareth, and Matthew and Luke come up behind them and they're like, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth. Okay. But this guy's the Messiah. And in Micah, it's like the Messiah is clearly from Bethlehem. So what they do, the problem is, how do you have this Jesus of Nazareth being the Messiah? So they do this elaborate damage control where, yes, he's from Nazareth, but he was really born in Bethlehem. And of course, if they were fiction through and through, you don't have to do that damage control. You don't have to make him from Bethlehem, but also from Nazareth. What you do is you just put him in Bethlehem from the start, and then later after that, make him Jesus of Bethlehem. But they don't do that because they're working with a historical core.
So that requires them caring about the historical nature of the Gospels at the very beginning. But even in the 2nd century, the earliest church fathers, they literally said that they did not care about the historical nature of it. They only cared about the the theological truth of it, like the spiritual truth of it. So, like, I mean, that would make sense if they cared about the history of it, and not just like what would make the best story for this at this point, like in order to communicate the theology and everything like that.
But also, you know, that goes to my point, saying that, you know, large parts of the gospel then we have to assume are just made up whole cloth by whoever wrote them or whatever groups of people wrote them, because, you know, then that throws any kind of historicity out the window. If you could just make shit up in the narrative, then, you know, hey.
Why would it use that terminology? I mean, they're making theological claims in parabolic form. They probably got that from Jesus. So, I mean, you can call it that, but
so you're just assuming that they got it from Jesus. You're not actually establishing that. You don't have any criteria to actually establish that that came from Jesus. You're just saying that it did.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, fuck it, right? Okay, so as far as Mark, which I know, sorry, Chad, did you get what you were looking for?
I think I've heard everything I need to hear.
Okay. So as far as the evidence for Paul being used by Mark, right? There are multiple different scholars that lay all this out. There's David Oliver Smith, Tom Dykstra, Thomas Nelligan, Mar Perez E. Diaz, Cameron E. Ferguson, and multiple edited volumes from De Gruyter. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing their last name right. But so the first one of my examples here is Jesus on taxation. What do you think that Paul says about taxation?
Doesn't he say something like in Romans to submit or something?
Yeah, in Romans 13, 1-7, it says, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right and you will be commended. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of the possible punishment, but also as a matter of conscience. This is also why you pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants who give them their full time to governing. Give to everyone what you owe them. If you owe them taxes, pay them taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor." Now, this is what Paul is saying. He does not specify that this is coming from the Lord, right? This is not a commandment of the Lord. This is something that he is talking about himself. Now, what do you think that in Mark that Jesus says about paying your taxes?
Well, I'm not convinced Paul wrote that. That might be an interpolation. So
there you go. I mean, I predicted it. Do you want to call me Miss Cleo? I'll go by Miss Cleo for the rest of the night. Because I mean, I predicted exactly what you would say. You would come up with some piss poor excuse for why it Paul says it. He doesn't say that it comes from the Lord, but yet the Lord ends up saying it in Mark. Because that's what he says. In Mark 12, 13-17, it says, "Paying the imperial tax to Caesar." Later, they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. They came to him and said, "Teacher, we know that you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others." because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we? But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. Why are you trying to trap me? He asked. Bring me a denarius and let me look at it. They brought the coin, and he asked them, whose image is this? And whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then Jesus said to them, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And they were amazed at him. Now, this is not verbatim what Paul said. Paul was a bit more verbose about it, but he does say, if you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. Talking about paying taxes and all this other stuff. Yeah, so, I mean, this is obviously a connection between the two. Like if Jesus said this, if Jesus issued this as a command from the Lord, Paul would have used that authority, but he didn't. Why didn't he do that?
Oh, I see. Well, I'm still not convinced there's a literary relationship. But
see, I mean, it's from my mouth to your mouth there, Alfred. I am Miss Cleo. I mean, there's actually more. Like how you've got a cumulative case for Jesus's existence. I got a cumulative case for this. So the Last Supper is also from Paul's account, and there's some evidence in First Clement also that there was some stuff copied from there, and then there's the Pauline Chiasmus in Mark 12. So like there's multiple different ways in which the connection between Mark.
Killing Jesus.
Huh?
Paul talks about the Judean. Paul talks about the Judean Jews killing Jesus.
Where does he say that?
1 Thessalonians 2:14-16.
Yeah, well, the multitude of scholars have identified that as an actual interpolation instead of the convenient interpolation for you. So that particular part right there makes no sense in the development of Paul. It's very anti-Semitic for him to mention that, and Paul, being a Jew himself, is rarely ever that anti-Semitic. He's actually trying to convince the Jews to follow Jesus and everything like that. He's speaking to them. So, like, I mean, it doesn't make sense for Paul to blame the Jews because he's never blamed the Jews there. Chad, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I was just thinking, again, this goes to my point that it seems like either way we're arguing for an interpolation somewhere, Mark, inserting Paul's words or Paul's words just being inserted by, a third party, which then goes back to what I've been saying all along. How is any of this historical? Like, it just seems like people have been adding to and taking away from it for so long that I just, again, cannot be convinced that, any of this is reliable.
I understand. Well, okay. I appreciate you guys taking my call.
Yeah, Alfred, this has been great. Great interacting with you. I haven't dusted off the Pauline, Mark connection in a while. It kind of seems, and correct me if I'm wrong there, Alfred, just to kind of round out the conversation. It kind of seems like you believe that Jesus is a real historical figure because the Gospels sound like they're history, so therefore they're probably history, and you just accept the party line of the dogmatic Christian scholars, right?
Well, yeah, and there's also the atheists, like Nietzsche, in my opinion, was like probably 1 in a billion, maybe not 1 in a billion, but like, and it wasn't even an issue for him. Like, yeah, there was a guy, but
is Nietzsche a historian, like a New Testament scholar? Is that, I forgot about that being part of his CV.
He was in, what is it called, philology, and he was a philosopher. Later went into that. So I mean,
okay, so not a New Testament, not a New Testament scholar, or even a historian. For that matter.
If he was New Testament,
kind of seems like an appeal to false authority, then, huh?
No, not really.
No, No, it just no expertise in history, doing history or the historical method or anything like that. There's
Oh,
nothing false authority about
that's,
that.
okay, well, I mean, I trust him. I do. So
I'm glad you trust Nietzsche. Great. Glad.
may
I'm
I
glad
ask,
for you.
this isn't like I got you. Like, who do you think is the smartest person who ever existed who affirms that Jesus did not exist? I'm curious.
I don't know why I've got to come up with a further appeal to authority on this.
No, it wasn't like I know Bertrand Russell didn't think Jesus
I don't
existed.
care.
So okay,
I don't, Chad, do you
want to
care?
know.
Do you care if like the smartest person in the world doesn't think that Jesus existed? Does that matter to you, Chad?
Yes,
Not
it
really.
does.
I mean, the purported smartest person in the world on Twitter the other day went nuts and said something about Jesus being the Messiah. So,
I mean,
I
that's
don't believe that either.
a lot of interpretation. So
Okay, so
I
why
think-
does it matter? Like, even if I could name the smartest person in the world that's on my side about this, does that make it any more true?
no, it's just like, dude, it was like just curious kind of conversation ending. It wasn't intended as a dig.
I didn't
even
take it
gave
as a dig. I didn't take it as a dig, but I did take it as a pointless exercise. Like, it
A
seems
non
like a
sequitur,
pointless
if you will.
Yeah, a non sequitur. Seemed like a non sequitur. Like, it seemed pointless. I don't care what people think. I care what the evidence shows.
But also,
Mark-
actually, I do want to add a little something to what was mentioned earlier about, Q probably exists because we didn't think Nazareth existed. My thing is, and to what John just said, I want to know what the evidence shows, and if the evidence shows that there is a Q document out there, I will happily align, my beliefs accordingly. Like, that's pretty much, how I try to live my life. But the thing is, I don't see a good reason to believe in it. Almost like I don't see a good reason to believe in a God. So if the evidence, doesn't show it, I'm not going to assume that there's good evidence just because I want to believe a certain version of the narrative, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean that, I'm saying it could never happen. I'm just saying it's not likely. And I'm going to continue to live my life as if it doesn't until I see evidence otherwise.
of Q or God?
Yes.
Both.
Oh well, there's no way, like in a conversation this short, that I could. So, but I mean, like people who study this spend their lives studying it. There's agreement, disagreement. So, I could get into the weeds if you want to, but I mean, I doubt you're interested. So,
Get into the weeds about what? About God?
about the existence of Q, but I mean,
Oh. Okay. I don't know. The best that I can tell you is I align with Mark Goodacre. So I mean, maybe maybe the next time I'm on either this channel or any other channel, you can call in and we can have a further discussion on Q and why that probably doesn't exist. So but I appreciate you calling in, Alfred. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight, I guess. But I hope you have a great night, and I hope that you'll call back in another time.
All right. Pleasure speaking to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you, Alfred. All right.
I like what Bree said. Isn't this a good entire conversation in the weeds? I think there were definitely some weeds happening. There were some weed adjacent topics.
Yeah.
That was way more of a marijuana joke than I intended it to be, but you know what? I'm rolling with it.
Yeah, I really appreciated Alfred being a great interlocutor there. Totally no digs as far as like the rolling with my interruptions. I know that I tried to not interrupt too much, but sometimes I feel the need to pipe in on occasion. But I don't think that we got another caller right now. But if you're in the comments and you want to challenge us on anything that we discussed, right? You can call in. The number's 984-400-5656. We'd love to have a conversation with you. But so as far as like kind of the things that we were talking about in Alfred's call, it kind of seems to me like a lot of the adherence to a historical Jesus just basically falls into not really understanding basic historical methodology, because like very obviously Alfred was thinking that the gospels were based on independent accounts of Jesus, when really the gospels don't mention any sources other than scripture. And we didn't get into a lot of the evidence for like my position on a lot of this, meaning the evidence from Philo identifying the same kind of figure that Paul identifies, using the exact same characterizing properties of Jesus that Paul identifies. And then further, I don't know if you know this, Chad, but on the confusion of tongues, Philo is engaged in a tradition called Pesherim, and he creates this Pesherim where he connects it to this certain section of Zechariah 12, and in that section he's talking about the high priest. Like he identifies his Logos figure, this archangel, with this high celestial priest in Zechariah 12. You know what the name of that high priest in Zechariah is?
I'm going to guess it has something to do with Yeshua.
Yes, it is literally Yeshua. So like it's I know it's weird how that it's convenient, right? But we all know that convenient shit never really pans out there,
especially when you're writing fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's my thing too, because as soon as someone says, the historicity of the Gospels, in the positive light, they kind of lost me, because I'm like, the Gospels have zombies walking around the earth, so I don't see a lot of evidence for that.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how Mike Licona, I mean, he lost speaking gigs, he lost a position where he was teaching at because of it. It's crazy how much they protect that very bottom line that they have for the historicity of the Gospels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that and again, just so everyone is aware and we're all on the same page, John has done way more research into this than I am. If I haven't made this entirely clear, was a homeschooled, educationally neglected kid. So, y'all are going to have to, and it took me a long time to reject the idea that all the magical stuff in the Gospels is real. So if you're going to come back and try to tell me that the Gospels are in any sense a historical document, or something that, talks about true events that absolutely happen, you got to explain it better than it took to because I'm going to have a hard time accepting what it took me a long time to deconstruct. And that's probably an admission of my bias, but that also means you're going to have to come at me with a lot more evidence, because I was raised on it's true because I said so, and that just doesn't cut it for me anymore.
Yeah, I feel like education in this area, just in general, amongst a lot of religiously affiliated people, is pretty poor, just in general. Even for those that didn't grow up in the situation that you grew up in. I know I grew up in a situation where it was literally like critical thought was just not taught, which I know is similar to what you come from, but it's like it didn't even. It didn't even like come up. Like I guess I was just indoctrinated enough to not even give it a second thought. Like just I believed what I was told, and so I mean I think that it stretches even between the fundamentalists, but even just the general sort of population there.
I agree, and it's and the whole narrative of Jesus and the Gospels has just been so ubiquitous in society. Like we were talking about Christmas earlier. Like there was actually an interesting thing that happened recently where a friend of mine took a mutual blind friend of ours out to go see Christmas lights on a date with someone else. So it was like 3 people, 2 of them on a date. It was a blind person and someone who was not. And what they would do is they would go around to all the different displays, and they would describe to our blind friend like what the Christmas lights look like, how they were laid out, what colors they were, and all that sort of thing. And during the course of this time, they kept mentioning like, oh, and there's a nativity scene at this one, it's over to the side, and there's a Santa Claus over here. After about 3 or 4 houses, my friend said, I'm gonna have to stop you there. What's a nativity scene? And it's one of those things that you never really think about because because we are used to seeing it so much, and it's just so much of a in the background thing that we never stop to think like, hey, someone who has no context for what this is, like it makes us stop and think like, wait a minute, that's odd that no one has ever explained it to this person before, or even said it, because that's just one of those things that's given. We've always assumed that this is part of the narrative and will forever be part of the narrative, and it will always be a scene that everyone is familiar with, when actually it's it is something that is very possible for there to be someone who doesn't have a context for it. So it's that just made me think a lot when they were telling me that story later. I was just like, I said, come to think of it, why do we just accept that that's just a standard part of the narrative and never really question it?
Yeah, we do have Terry on the line from Florida. Terry, are you there? Hi, Terry. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm an atheist.
Okay.
Raised Jewish, so I've never been Christian. But when I was in college 30 some odd years ago, I took a course called Languages of the Bible. And it studied the scriptures through logistics. Is that the right word?
Logistics?
I guess.
Okay.
Something like that. I just can't think of the word right now. But anyway, my professor, who was also Jewish and spoke like 12 different languages fluently, he postulated that by studying the Bible that way, there were probably 3 different men that the story of Jesus was based on: a rabbi, a physician, and an illusionist.
They walk into a bar.
I knew you were going to do
that. Okay. It was a setup. I had to go for it.
Well, so I'm guessing the physician is Luke, the illusionist is probably Matthew, and the third one was probably Mark.
No. These are not people who wrote about it. It were people who were traveling around at that time, and the 3 stories got mixed up.
Well, no, they definitely didn't get mixed up, because Matthew copies like nearly verbatim like most of Mark, most of Matthew is just a copy of most of Mark, and then Luke contains elements of both of those.
You're still missing my point. The story that is told is a conglomeration of 3 different people.
Well, I don't know. So there's a little bit of teeth there on that, because like the passion narrative, the suffering of Jesus, that particular narrative in Mark is most likely based on Jesus ben Ananias, when he assaulted Jerusalem there in like the right around the middle of the first century, like 65 to 70, somewhere around in there. So I mean, yeah, I think that they probably took common stories that were known at that time, and then they superimposed Jesus onto them. Like they used some of that, because that's how they were taught in pagan schools, is to copy like previous things that were done and then just change them a little bit to meet what was needed for your story. So it's very possible that they copied that from whatever account of Jesus ben Ananias and then just changed it a little bit for Jesus. So, but I mean, I'm not exactly sure how we could really identify the conglomeration of the people like making up the gospel stories, but that doesn't really explain Paul's hallucinatory Jesus that he talks about.
No, it doesn't. It was just a thought that I had when I was listening before, and that because it just made sense to me that all the miracles that supposedly happened, and he had a healing that was probably a physician who, or such as they were at the time, and a rabbi, of course, is a teacher.
Hey Terry, are you keen on reading books at all?
Not that much. I mean, I'm almost 70, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't trying to mention like your age or anything. I was just saying like there's some people that just aren't really into reading books or whatnot, and I respect that. But there's a book called Gospel Fictions by Randall Helms, and it's not like a peer-reviewed book or anything. It's a pop level book, but he actually establishes through a linguistic analysis, which I think maybe what you were looking for a minute ago. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So he does a linguistic analysis of those miracles that you're talking about, and those miracles are actually inspired from the Old Testament.
Well, yeah.
So I mean, it doesn't require like them to be based on any real person. It just requires it requires the authors to know the scriptures, which they did.
Right, and since they weren't written down till decades after the supposed facts, they could always make it look like, in the story, they could make it look like he did what he was supposed to do.
Right.
Terry, I do have a question though. This professor, did this professor mention like any specific physician or rabbi or anything that they thought that the character of Jesus was based on?
No.
Oh, just in general.
No, he was just studying the scriptures linguistically. And again, this was 30 some odd years ago, so I can't even remember the professor's name.
Well, I mean, probably he was probably just following along with, well, I guess that would have been more fringe because he's not trying to say that, Jesus was the inspiration for those stories, obviously, but he was probably following along more with maybe some critical scholarship on that at the time.
But that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. No, yeah, I definitely appreciate you calling in and giving us your 2 cents on that. That's pretty interesting, the development of all these critical positions in New Testament studies. So I definitely appreciate you providing your perspective on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. I hope that you'll call in again if at any time in the future when you have something to add, because it is valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
I've got to workshop that now. So a rabbi, a physician, and what was the third thing?
An illusionist.
Oh, illusionist, yeah. So a rabbi, a physician, illusionist walk into like ancient Palestine, and now we invaded Venezuela. Okay.
That is, no. So the illusionist is the reason why we have the rabbits at Easter now.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh,
there you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. Okay, we did it, Reddit. There has to be a joke in there somewhere. I'll workshop it and I'll get back with y'all. Stay tuned for my stand-up special here on Skeptic Haven. That's not happening.
All right. So we do want to thank our patrons right now at Skeptic Haven. We got Karen Butcher. Sorry, I'm going to have to go back around. Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Rion D. Murphy, Dan D., Michael Wiseman, Sonny Shell, Phil Calderone. Thank you to all the patrons. Sorry, it's coming back around right now. I'm going to get everybody. Paul Cammish, and then there's Karen. I just missed Paul. Thank you guys so much for being patrons here at Skeptic Haven. Skeptic Haven on our Let's Talk show. We really appreciate everybody that tuned in to watch tonight. Really appreciate Alfred. Really appreciated Terry. And I really hope that everybody has an awesome week coming up. I've got to go back to work, which fucking sucks, but hope y'all have a great time. Chad, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm so sorry if I bogarted these conversations tonight, but why don't you tell people where they can find you and everything like that before we head out?
Well, you can find me primarily on TikTok at Radish, and I'm also on Instagram, Radish85. My link tree is probably a good source for finding any place. I'm Radish there as well. But I will say, I don't think you bogarted that at all, and honestly, I learned a lot tonight, and I really do appreciate it. And I enjoy being on with you. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man, and everybody else.
Yeah, same here, Chad. I can't wait to see you again at the Guy Fieri restaurant that we have to go to.
Yes, for those of you who don't know, I live very close to the first Alabama location of the Guy Fieri chicken restaurant. And I am absolutely hanging this over John's head. I'm going to have to take him there just to experience it, because it is in a Walmart, which is like peak Alabama. You gotta love it.
I mean, it is definitely peak. Normally they do Subways in Walmart, but now it's apparently Guy Fieri chicken restaurants. So I'm up for it. I'm good for it.
This is not a paid endorsement. This is just us, talking about our mutual love of chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to take a bite into one of the chickens, and I'm just going to randomly go, Flavor Town.
Oh, man. And we'll also bring a rabbi, an illusionist, and a physician. So, and we'll continue to workshop that, damn it. I'm stuck on that.
All right, everybody. Y'all have a nice night, and we will see all you heathens, I guess, next week. I won't, but, other people will.
Thank you all much.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.